This will be more useful when I'm actually drawing, but like I said, for consistency's sake. Well, we'll see. Oh, we'll see how that works. That'll do something. We'll see. Yeah, course description. This is a beginning drawing course with the attention to formal elements. Emphasis is placed on drawing realistically using line and value. The topics covered are the use of line, creation of volume through the use of value, and expressive mark making, composition, and perspective. A pretty standard, academic basic drawing class. Monday, Wednesday, Fridays, 9 a.m. to 10:50. Strange. I'm not the biggest fan of the 3 sessions. That's what it is. So Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 9. Don't be late. Course objectives: how to observe and describe 3-dimensional form and 2-dimensional surface, and understand there's difference in what we know about an object and what we actually see. We'll get into that later on, but it's a pretty interesting thing that oftentimes, I don't want to get caught up in this, our brain makes a lot of shortcuts. It's super effective for communicating really quickly, for processing things really quickly, but it can get in the way of drawing because it'll tell your eyes are taking in the information, and your brain will say, I've got this, and it'll draw what it thinks it sees without actually observing. That's going to probably be the biggest barrier for everyone. We'll work through that, of kind of breaking that, of taking the time to really look at something. I know that sounds super like easy and elementary, but once it gets to it, even I still today have to slow down and really evaluate what I'm looking at, what my brain is telling me I'm looking at. So, and to understand that visual thinking, the ability to formulate mental images, is necessary to clarify and complete a drawing. So thinking 3-dimensionally, we'll be thinking 3-dimensionally, focusing on that through 2-dimensional drawing. The learning outcome: student will accurately utilize sighting principles to measure the observable height, width, and depth of subjects depicted. Students will accurately transfer what is observed into line on paper. Students will demonstrate the ability to draw objects and environments utilizing effects of 1, 2, and 3-point perspective. Students will demonstrate the ability to interpret the structure of forms and portray them using measured block-in stages, which are then resolved to fully rendered drawings. Students will be able to convincingly draw the effects of light and shadow, utilizing 6 elements of light logic: highlight, light, transition tone, core shadow, reflected light, and cast shadow. Students will demonstrate an understanding of when to use and portray hard and soft edge relationships. When observing subtle differences in light and shadow as it falls across form and space. Students will show that they are able to manipulate compositional elements to create balance, and students will demonstrate the ability to use charcoal techniques in line and value to produce convincing volume. So our first project is going to be charcoal. That's kind of what I emphasize a little bit more. I know most people are probably more comfortable with graphite. Graphite is fine, but I find that oftentimes drawing in graphite is you either get it to begin with or you don't. And charcoal, I think a lot of people have an easier time, although it's messier and it doesn't necessarily stay put like graphite does. You put a line down, it stays where it is with graphite. With charcoal, it's a little bit more fluid. It can be moved around a little bit more, which can be barrier to entry at the beginning. But I've had, tons of people always be like, oh, I didn't think I could draw until I used charcoal, and it allowed me to think spatially a little bit more. When you're thinking with graphite, it's a little bit more line-based, which can be super abstract with your brain. So we're going to do graphite, and then we'll focus on, or we're going to do charcoal rather, and then we'll focus on graphite. We'll move into both of them. Mask mandate, everyone has a mask on, which is awesome. Because sometimes there's a problem student who doesn't want to wear a mask or pretends like they forget. This is from what the school has given me from the higher ups, that you must wear a mask that fully covers your nose and mouth in the classroom and buildings. Masks are required indoors where physical distancing can't be assured and are required in all classroom, lab, and advising spaces. The Board of Trustees has directed masks to be worn in indoor public settings where physical distancing cannot be assured, in accordance with the CDC guidance regarding the COVID-19 Delta variant. Physical distancing indoors cannot be assured when individuals are within 6 feet of one another or individuals are in the same room for more than 15 minutes. If a student refuses to wear a mask, the student may be ejected from the class per UA Little Rock's classroom disruption policy. If an instructor ejects a student from the class for refusing to wear a mask, the student will be immediately reported to the dean of students. So yeah, and it doesn't look like we're gonna have any problems with that. So, but I didn't think that the previous 2 semesters either. And there's always a student. So just be aware of that. If you forget your mask, there are masks in the front office that you can get, the blue surgical ones. So you shouldn't ever be without one if you forget when it's not that big of a deal, because there are some in the front. But yeah, if you refuse to wear a mask or you come to class multiple times without a mask, I'm gonna report you to the dean of students. So participation and attendance policy. You're expected to be here every class. Being absent does not relieve a student of responsibility for assignments given during the absence. And unlike other classes, this isn't just lecture, so you're not missing out on just me talking. A lot of it is work here and kind of critique that I can give you to move things around. I will probably, again, we'll see because there's 20 students, be sitting in on your drawing to help you move things around. I find that that's helpful for a lot of people because, sometimes the motor skills just aren't there yet. And me showing you where things are going by physically sitting in on your drawing will help you. And if you're missing class, you're not gonna get that. That said, if you have COVID symptoms, don't feel like you have to come to class. Please do not come to class and sit that out. And we'll work around that. Like I said, this is on Zoom that I'm recording it through, so you can come in through the classroom on Zoom. You probably won't get as much attention as the people that are in the class, but it's better than nothing. And it won't obviously be as good as being in classroom. But if you're in Zoom, I'm not going to count it as an absence. Don't use that as an excuse, I'll go on later on, to not come into class. I've had people who are like, oh, I live an hour away or 2 hours away. Can I just do Zoom? It's like, no. But unfortunately, the way this class is structured is just not going to be as good. And if you do end up getting sick and you can't come back into class, you can do Zoom through that, but know that you will be graded. Like you're not going to get a curve to your grade just because you weren't outside. I'm not going to penalize you for it, but don't expect that, I can use this as an excuse to not have to come in the mornings because I hate morning classes, and I can kind of coast, go under the radar, and the grading is going to be a little bit easier for me. It won't necessarily. And if I feel like you're taking advantage of that, it's definitely not going to be easier on you. So just don't do that. Don't be late to this class. I remember when I first graduated high school, I was like, you see movies and TV shows and stuff like that, and they're like, oh, you don't have to come to class in college. You don't have to worry about that. And then when I was in school, we have all these attendance policies. It's not because I want to force you to be here or anything like that. It is just because if you're missing a class, you're missing a whole section of what we're going over. You're missing work that you could be doing, studio time, and that people might feel like you can get around that, but I've seen already, only teaching here like a year, how much that will trip people up, missing one class or missing two classes. Don't freak out about it, but don't take advantage of that, because you're not gonna come out on top, most likely, if you're trying to get around missing all the classes you can miss and then coming in. I'd have some students who would miss like 3 or 4 or 5 classes, and our policy was more relaxed the past 2 semesters. So they'd miss 3 or 4 or 5 classes, and they'd only meet once a week. So they essentially missed 5 weeks of class. And they'd come in and be like, okay, I'm gonna, sorry I missed. And it's like, there's no way you can conceivably even catch up at this point. So it's really more of that than it is like us being authoritarian and you have to be here. But at the same time, the way the school calculates, the college calculates how you earn your degree, you have to be in class for a certain number of hours, which is also why attendance is important. Virtual protocol. There's always the chance that we shut down again. And we have to go back to completely virtual. We'll just be going in through Zoom, and I'll give you guys all the password and the Zoom ID room or whatever. If it's our first time getting into the Zoom, I'm gonna be not as harsh. If it's your first time kind of getting in, it's not necessarily the most intuitive thing. So I'm not super upset about your first late on Zoom if we end up going to Zoom. But know that if you are late on Zoom in the future as you go forward, it's the same as being late in class. So it's not just because it's online and virtual doesn't mean that it's going to be as I'm going to be more lenient necessarily with late. And on Zoom you don't even have to put your camera on, so you don't have to. There's nothing that should be stopping you from that. Classroom conduct. Be nice to each other, basically. There will be critiques that I've never seen it get heated. I'm pretty good at moderating, so know that when we do go into critiques, it shouldn't ever be about personally attacking someone, whether that is you doing it to someone or someone else, you feeling like someone else is doing it to you. When I was in school, the critiques are always kind of, one, talking in front of people is a thing, and then 2, your work can be very personal, especially if you spend a lot of time on it, and it can feel like someone critiquing your work is critiquing you, and I understand that, but we aren't. No one is. And if they are, it's that's more of a reflection on them than anything else. I do my critiques a little bit more of like a discussion, and I typically try to pick things apart so that you can improve yourself, not to break someone down at all, but when you can really start seeing not necessarily the blind spots of something, but where you can improve, definitely. That's going to help you way more in the long run, especially since I guarantee you'll spend a ton of time on drawings in this class and you'll be very attached to them. You continue drawing in 2 years, these drawings are going to mean nothing at all. So in the span of what those things meant, that critique of this is where you need to improve, and listening to that is going to be way more effective in the long run and make you better in the long run. And once you get past, the first couple of years or first, however long you draw through this, the personal feelings that you have for that drawing are going to mean nothing. And the benefit of that critique is going to be so much more than, your feelings getting hurt. Your feelings shouldn't get hurt, but saying from my own experience, I definitely felt that things were very personal all the time when I was an undergrad, especially in the beginning. So that's totally valid, but just know that it's not meant to come off that way. Inclement weather policy. This, you can go to the link and it should send out texts about, obviously we're not gonna have any snow days this semester, but if something happens, who knows at this point. This is the link to it. What's probably gonna happen is that it will be virtual. We'll just go onto Zoom instead. Depending on what it is, it might be something that, you know, I won't even be able to teach over Zoom, and we'd need like, we'll be working from still lives a lot. If I don't have the still life and the school is shut down, there's no way we can do virtual that day. So just kind of keep an eye out for my emails if you get the text message that school will be shut down, or email that school will be shut down. Students with disabilities, if you have a disability, you can talk to me and I'll help you get in touch with the Disability Resource Center, or you can just go straight to them. You have to do this if you want that to be considered. Some people need a little more time on tests. We're not gonna have tests, but on like maybe projects or whatever, I'm totally willing to give you that, but you have to go to them and they will tell me what exactly it is that you need. I can't do anything if you come to me and tell me I have this disability, but it's not basically reinforced by the Disability Center. There are some things that can fall out of that where maybe you like hurt your leg and you're like a disability like that. That's only temporary. I can be accommodating for that, but again, we're gonna have to play off of how that goes and works into the semester. But things like ADHD, you have problems with attention, you have a diagnosed anxiety disorder, you have, you know, things like that. Make sure you talk to disabilities, not just for this class, but it'll be helpful for all your other classes too. So academic integrity, it's gonna be hard to plagiarize, but don't try to take that up as a challenge. Don't plagiarize things, you can get kicked out of school. The non-discrimination policy, you can go find that. And my email policy. So I will often have times, again, it's always a handful of students, maybe less than a handful of students, where they will email me an hour before class and be like, hey, I don't have this. Basically, they'll ask, can I not come to class because I wasn't prepared? And they'll email me an hour before where I can't possibly answer it within that amount of time. And then they'll take me not responding to them as, well, that's a yes. You'll have to, if you're emailing me, I try my best to check up on things, but sometimes I'm working on, you know, my own work that doesn't allow me to always be tapped into this email. 72 hours, so like over the weekend, I'll respond on Monday. Usually during the week, I'll respond a little quicker, but on the weekend, I might not respond. So if it's a project that's due on Monday and you're emailing me Sunday night and it's gonna be due in the Monday morning, you might have to figure that out before, you know, you can get back to me. You should probably plan forward. Sometimes things happen. You should plan forward a little bit more. So frequently asked questions. I put this together again for a handful of students, really, because these things come up every single semester, and oftentimes art is not treated like other subject matter. So if you come to class, you go to your science class and you don't have the book, and you guys are working out of the book, you know, that's on you. The science teacher is not gonna be like, oh, well, you know, I guess you can miss today. It's gonna be the same thing with materials in this class. If you go to a science lab and you have open-toed shoes, you can't get into the science lab. That's gonna be the same thing with things here. I don't say that to be a jerk about things. I say that because there are often times we try to work for, or some students will look for excuses to not have to be in. You're not going to get an excused absence for things like that. I forgot my pencils. I forgot this. Well, the option is to go home and get it. If you're late to class, I'm way more understanding of that, but don't use it as an excuse every time. If you're late to class every single day and you tell me, oh, I forgot my supplies every single day, that's a problem. That's not going to be an excuse that you can always just use. So I forgot my blank. What do you want me to do? Figure it out. It's not my job to keep track of your stuff. That's basically the whole thing. Just keep track of your stuff. What did I miss in class this week? It's not my job to lecture and demo every demo twice for anyone who needs it. Pay attention in class. I'm going to have it up here blown up so that you can easily see. If you can't see, move up closer. But inevitably, there's always students, and sometimes you need clarification. That's not what I'm talking about here. That's totally fine if you need me to repeat something in a different matter. I'm fine with making analogies and accommodating you through that, but there's always people who I'll do a 30-minute demo and I'll get done. Everyone moves on, and one person goes, okay, so what are we supposed to do? I just told you 30 minutes. That's not going to pass in any other class. It's not going to pass in this class. So just pay attention. I don't want to have to repeat myself all the time. Sometimes things happen. If you need clarification, totally fine with that. But and again, if you miss a class, I'm going to upload these. So it might not be right after this class because I have to prepare for my other class. But I'm going to try to make it in as timely a manner as possible so that you'll be on track if you miss a class before Wednesday. If you miss Monday, hopefully you'll be able to view the video before Wednesday so that you'll kind of at least be able to know what we're doing. Or you can, talk to someone someone else, who's in the class and ask them what's going on. My finished project looks like this because I didn't understand the material. Again, if you take a test in science class and you say, yeah, I missed this many questions because I didn't understand the material. You should bring that up before you get to the point where you're supposed to apply the material. It's not an excuse for a bad test grade or a bad project. And like I said, I'm more than willing to be accommodating if you don't understand the material. If this is your first time drawing or being introduced to these concepts, because some of my drawing will be very different than what most people have been exposed to. I'm fine if you need clarification, but do that before the project is due because it's not going to be an excuse. It's also, we're going to have critiques and we're going to have to play that by ear because we have 20 people. We'll see how many critiques we can fit into one class and we have to spill over to the next class. That should also be its own barrier to do your work the best that you can so that when we hang them all up, you aren't, embarrassed by your own work. I don't want you to be embarrassed by your own work, but if you're not putting the work into the art in order to make it good, if that's what it takes to make it good, I'm fine with that. Oftentimes people will say, I don't think I can push this project any further. And while it's good that you feel like you've accomplished something and you're scared of giving it up, I'm going to keep tabs on your work as it progresses. So if you really tried to push yourself and you somehow destroyed your drawing, I will probably more favorably look at that as a circumstance where you tried to better yourself than I will say, oh, sorry, sucks for you. You shouldn't have ruined your drawing. I'd rather you push the drawing than you do something in the beginning and just sit on it. That's not learning. That's just relying on basically what you can already do. If you push that drawing further, that's going to be, and like I said, I'll be aware of where you are. So if I see you're drawing better at a previous stage than it is now, I'm not going to just, well, sorry, I'll probably grade it with that in mind. Also, don't use that as an excuse. I live away from school. Can I attend class virtually? No. I have, like I said, had students that have tried to kind of do that. It's not going to be, you're not going to be able to coast like that for this class. It's going to be, one, you won't get your money's worth out of this class, and I want you to get as much as you can out of this. I am more than willing to give you everything that I know to help you become better artists. Really, that only benefits me if everyone, but I'm looking at it like that. If everyone becomes better at drawing, the knowledge in the area of what good art is or what competent art is even rises. So that's, you know, great for me, because then everyone becomes better at appreciating art and everyone will look at art in a different way. And that's exactly what I want. I'm fine with giving you everything. I often felt that sometimes my teachers had like secret information that they were holding back from me. And I think that was valid in some circumstances. This isn't about my ego at all. Art can often be about your ego, but I'm willing to meet you all the way, but you have to join me there. This isn't the style I usually draw in, so I don't want to do it, is basically the implication oftentimes. It's fine if you have your own style that you prefer to draw in. I'm not at all trying to stomp that out of you. I don't believe in that, but I think the kind of representational aspects of how I draw and how I teach and the projects that we're doing will benefit you no matter what style that you draw in. But don't use that as an excuse to I'm not going to grade you more lightly if you use that as an excuse. I'm not going to say, okay, well, they have their own style, so you know they can get away with this. That's not how it's going to work at all. Like I said, the school that I went to, a lot of the students, big areas were like game design and entertainment design, which are kind of intertwined. And places like, you know, Blizzard and Epic Games would recruit from my school directly from the undergrads, because that structure that you can get in the figure drawing and the two-dimensional drawing goes really, really well with you then experimenting past that. Like, oh, understanding how three-dimensional objects works is going to be super important when you want to transition into, well, maybe I'm not super interested about spending 20 hours on a drawing, rendering something, you know, super polished. That's totally fine. But having that kind of vocabulary in the beginning will help you let go of certain things when you want to go into a more stylistic direction. So like I said, I'm not trying to stomp out your style, but don't use that as an excuse not to kind of achieve or push yourself in this one area. Also, I don't have it on here. There will inevitably, because the way Arkansas, I think in general, in our education in Arkansas, I think, is the South has very much been kind of left behind by a lot of art and culture. And inevitably, there's going to be people who have spent more of their own individual time honing their drawing skills. One, don't worry too much about comparing yourself to other people. If you work with me, we're all going to kind of get there eventually. But then two, on the opposite end of that spectrum, if you have a lot of drawing skill, feel free to coast in the beginning. I don't want to hear, okay, I finished, can I go? No, you can't go. Like, do it again then, you know, that's what I'm going to say. So if you have the skill to get there really quickly, just relax. Let this be a relaxation period for you versus I want to finish this as fast as possible. You don't get an award for that. You're not going to get a better grade for that. And you're probably robbing yourself a little bit. That's kind of, I didn't have that exact attitude, but I had focused on art a lot when I was before I even went to college. And so I was kind of pushing through projects that I think if I had a teacher who was a little more strict, some of those earlier tiny vocabulary lessons, tiny bits of knowledge could have been better imprinted on me. That's partially my fault. I'm acknowledging that. And I wouldn't have had such a struggle later on to relearn realistic representational skills. So if this is way beyond you, you can coast. In the beginning, we're definitely going to accelerate towards the end, but in the beginning, it'll be very basic stuff in order to get everyone on the same page. That's what is going to be super important. Yeah, let's see. 9:50. Do I have anything else that I need to say? I'll probably post this up. Oh, I need to go over materials. I'll probably hang these up here. You all have a physical copy. Blackboard, it's uploaded on Blackboard. I'll probably post them up too. I'll have a schedule for y'all. It will probably be changed at certain points just because of, like I said, how many students are in here. I have no gauge of how long the critiques are going to take. And I'd prefer the critiques to go on and everyone get a pretty in-depth discussion about it. And that could be 15 minutes each, you know, but I'd rather push projects off a little bit in order for us to get those good discussions going. We'll talk about that later on. Let me go over materials real quick. So for the first in each class, what you need to have, you will get supplies eventually. We don't hand them out right away because oftentimes, you know, people drop in the beginning of class. Maybe it doesn't work with their schedule, whatever. And we don't hand out materials to begin with because then they'll just run away with the materials. You know, we don't get those materials back. So a sketchbook is what you will need on Wednesday. Anything will work. This is a $5 sketchbook from Michael's, these black books. They're actually pretty decent for their price. It's kind of a killer deal. It's not the best paper at all. I mean, it's a $5 sketchbook. So if you want a better sketchbook, that's fine too. I'm just saying this so that the price point is, there shouldn't be an excuse of, oh, I don't have the money for that. If you bring in computer paper, dude, like staple it together. I don't care. Bring in something. I'd rather you have something and then, oh, you know, I couldn't run out and get that thing. So don't bring in lined paper though. I'd rather you bring in computer paper than lined paper. A pencil, if you have a pencil set, that's fine. If you have an HB pencil, this is an H pencil. That's fine too. And then an eraser of some kind. I prefer the kneaded eraser. If you don't have a kneaded eraser and you have like a vinyl eraser, that's fine. I will give you guys kneaded erasers eventually, but like I said, we're holding off on giving out supplies right away. And then a charcoal pencil. These orange ones, the General's charcoal, you can find them at Michael's, at Hobby Lobby, at Art Outfitters. They're super, super common. Get the 2B, the medium. If you want to get the, it's right there, 2B medium. If you want to get the variety pack, give me 1 second. That's fine too. I will give you more pencils, but these are like $1.30. So altogether, the supply is under $10. Yeah.
What's that black pencil called in that eraser?
In here? Oh, this one? This is just a graphite pencil. Just an HB. It doesn't even necessarily need to be a number, like a art pencil. It can be a number 2 pencil. And then this is a kneaded eraser. If you have one of these, bring it in. If you don't, you can bring in like a white vinyl eraser, the plasticky erasers. Those will work fine too for the first day. I'll give you one of these. I'll give you one of these, sorry. And then you'll eventually get one of these big sketchbooks too to work in. But you will need a sketchbook, a big drawing pad. You will need a sketchbook to do the beginning project and then like the thumbnails and stuff like that. Yeah, I think that's it. So you can get, like I said, these pretty much anywhere. If you want to come up here and take a photo of them, I'll just put them over there. That you can take a photo of them. They're like the most basic drawing stuff. You already have the stuff. You don't need to get new stuff to get it. So draw on Wednesday. There was something else. Materials. I can't remember. If I need to, tell you anything, I'll email you. No required reading. Excuse me. There's no textbook you need to buy or anything like that. So this is the yes. One more time. Food and drink. Yeah, you can bring it. You can bring your cell phones. I don't really care about cell phones. Don't get on your cell phone while I'm lecturing. That's super rude. But if you have headphones, I keep it quiet in here because I find it easier to think. If I have noises going on, that's super distracting to me. If you have headphones, you can listen to your headphones while we're working. Don't listen to your headphones while I'm talking. If I start talking, please take your headphones out. Same thing with texting. I don't really care. I often find that it's good to refresh your brain, essentially. In between drawing, if you're really struggling, you're pushing a drawing, taking a little break from that drawing helps a lot. And if you need to get on your phone for a little bit, that's fine too. Don't get on your phone the whole class. Food and drink, I would minimize. I don't want messes. If you bring in water, that's totally fine. Or whole meals in here, But this is a morning class. If you need to get some breakfast with a breakfast bar or whatever, that's totally fine. Water is totally fine. Yeah. Any other questions, concerns, comments? No? Cool. We will be staying. There might be times where we have 30 to 15 minutes left at the end of class, maybe, and it's really not enough time to start a project, but I might let you go early, but don't get in the habit of thinking that that is what we're going to do. Always get let out early. So yeah, bring in supplies for Wednesday. We're going to start projects on Wednesday. We're going to start drawing. Make sure you have your supplies. If not, I'm going to tell you to get your supplies. If you don't come back, or you come back with 10 minutes left to class, it's going to be an absence. So that's it. Yeah, if that's all, we can go.